Okay, so today we'll start our discussion about configurational isomers, right? In the last lecture we discussed about conformational isomers, which could just be interconverted by rotation of a single bonds, right, without breaking bonds. But today we'll see what are called our configurational isomers. Now these are isomers which cannot be interconverted to one another without breaking a bond, right? You have to convert from here to say cis dichloroethane to trans dichloroethane only by breaking a new bond. And similar is the case with S-butanol and R-butanol, right? Now in these particular cases you can have two things, right? In configuration isomer, if say your rotation around this multiple bond is restricted, right? If you have restricted rotation around a multiple bond, then it is called geometric isomerism. Geometric isomers, right? These are geometric isomers. But if you don't have multiple bonds, you just have a chiral carbon. What is chiral carbon will just come later. We'll see, right? You can have this kind of isomerism also, where you have a mirror image relationship, right, which are non-superimposable with one another. In those cases, we say they are optical isomers. There is a specific reason why it is called optical, because they show optical activity, which we'll discuss later again, right? So there are two types of configurational isomers, geometric and optical. In this particular case, we say this is a pair of enantiomers, this S-R-butanol and S and R pair. Now, one thing you see, it is common for all configurational isomers that the name of the isomers are same, right? The IUPAC names are same, right? See, in this case it is 1,2-dichloroethene. Here also it is 1,2-dichloroethene. What changes? The prefix changes, right? The prefix changes. This is the difference with your constitutional isomerism, where suppose a positional isomerism, right? So 1-chlorobutane and 2-chlorobutane, these are isomers, but the name also is changing. Where in these two examples you see here also it is same, only cis and trans is the change, and here only S and R suffix are changing, right? So everything else is remaining same. So these are configurational isomers. So the compound is same, the name of the IUPAC name of the compound will be same, only the prefix will change, right? Now before discussing this, we'll continue our discussion mainly with these optical isomers, right? Optical activity and this how to designate R and S, all these things. Now before doing so, we just have to point out what is chirality, right? Now you will say that it is just having 4 different chiral groups around a carbon atom and all that, but the meaning of chirality is not that. The meaning of chirality is just this one, non-superposability of mirror images is called chirality. As in this case, see here you have nothing to do with carbon atoms, right? This right hand and this left hand are mirror images, right? They are mirror image to each other. You can easily know it, right? When you look at the mirror, our right hand looks like the left hand, right? But they are non-superposable. This is non-superposable, right? This is called, then we say that the hands are chiral, right? They are chiral now, because they are non-superposable on its mirror image. That's why it is chiral. So if someone asks you what is chirality, just say this line, right? This is the only definition. Non-superposability of mirror images is called chirality, right? You do not have to say that how many groups are attached to carbon and all that. This is the only definition of chirality, right? Now, the different kinds of groups we will discuss about it when see in chemistry. Suppose which you are say what is called is chiral carbon here, right? The carbon is chiral, right? The carbon here is chiral, right? Why? When you say the carbon is chiral, when you have four different groups attached to it. And why we say it is chiral? Not because that four groups is attached to it, right? It does not make it chiral. It may we say that this is chiral because you see now if you have a mirror image, right? It is not superposable. That's why we call it chiral, right? See, suppose the 4 is the mirror image of 3, right? Now you say if you want to rotate it about this axis, you are rotating it about this axis how many? 180 degree. Then what will you end up? Suppose if you rotate it, then you will end up having, so this is carbon, so this is X will be same here. Now Y will come here, right? And sorry, Y will come here, and your W will be here and Z will be here, right? So it will be behind the plane. See, these are not superposable, right? These are not superposable. So that means when you have a carbon atom with four different groups, right? Then its mirror image is not superposable with itself, right? That's why we say that they are chiral and these mirror images are enantiomers, right? We call them enantiomers, these two. Enantiomers must be in pairs, right? If there is one enantiomer present, you can identify, then there has to be another enantiomer of it, right? Okay, so this was the same case as we saw in the last slide, that with 2-butanol and S-butanol. So here is the chiral carbon, this is the chiral carbon, right? And there are 4 types of groups. See, in this case you have hydrogen, hydroxide, a methyl group and a ethyl group. So there are 4 different types of groups attached to this carbon. That's why the mirror image is not superimposable, and that's why they are called chiral, right? Now as it is not superimposable on its mirror image, we say not only the carbon is chiral, the molecule is also chiral. Molecule is chiral, right? And this is important. The molecule has to be chiral for optical activity, right? To have its enantiomer and all that, right? This is important. Just by having chiral carbon is not sufficient. Let's get an example, right? Suppose I draw the Fisher projection like this. Say H. So this is a very common example, right? In any of the books you will find it. This is what is called meso. Meso is another prefix, right? We'll see what is it. Tartaric acid. This is mesotartaric acid. See, you have 2 chiral centers here, right? Because if you see here you have one hydrogen, one hydroxide, one carboxyl, and another type group of something like this, right? So this is a chiral carbon, right? And same is the case with here also. This is again a chiral carbon, right? But this is not optically active because the compound as a whole is not chiral. See, it may be difficult for you to view this, but if you do the Shawhorse, right? If you write the Shawhorse projection, you already know, right? In the last lecture we saw on the how to draw the Shawhorse from Fisher. So sorry, this one COH, COH. Okay, so this is the sawhorse. Fine. Now, suppose you have a mirror here, then what will be the mirror image? Pardon my drawing. So this will be the mirror image now. Okay. Right. Okay. Now, if you just rotate, suppose there is an axis here. If you are rotating it, say 180 degree, what will you end up? You will end up with something. You have just done it 180 degree. So, right, this hydroxide will go here. This hydrogen will go here. COH will remain here only, right? And this hydroxide will come here, and HCOH. Now see, this is same, right? This is same thing, identical. Now as they are same, right, they cannot be considered as the non-superimposable mirror images. That means now these are superposable, right? These are superposable, these two forms. As such, if they are superposable, we cannot say that this is chiral. Now we say that this is achiral. Achiral, right? So, though mesotartaric acid have two chiral carbons, right? But the molecule itself is achiral. Molecule itself is achiral, right? So this is one of many important things to remember, right? So whenever you say that if you find a carbon atom with 4 different carbon groups, the molecule will be chiral. No. When you find a carbon atom with 4 different groups around it, then you say the carbon atom is chiral, but that does not guarantee the molecule will be chiral. We have just seen with this example, right? How we will find it? We'll just see in next 2 slides, right? So for this time being, we have to see that what is chiral carbon and what is chiral molecule, right? We have seen the difference. So in the first example here, we have a chiral carbon and also the molecule is chiral. And the second example, we saw that though we have 2 chiral carbons, the molecule is not chiral, right? And along with the same discussion, you see in these 2 examples, you will not find a chiral carbon, right? There is no chiral carbon here. See, in this first example, these are allenes, right? Allenes. So subsequent consecutive your double bonds are there, right? So these are allenes, right? Now if you have disubstituted allenes, right, 1,3 type of substitution, right, you will have a non-superimposable mirror image relationship. See, you cannot superimpose it. Suppose you are saying that if you just flip it, if you flip it, if you make a flip, then you can superimpose it with this one. You can superimpose this hydrogen with this one. The carbons will also be superimposed, but see, this chlorine will go here and this hydrogen will come here. So they are not superimposable. So they are also enantiomers. If they are from enantiomers, then we have to say that this molecule and this molecule both are chiral molecules. Chiral molecules, right? But you cannot find a chiral carbon here. So there is no chiral carbon, but still the molecule is chiral. So this is important. If you have molecule is chiral itself, then you will have mirror image relationship. Same is the case here. So it is a much bigger molecule. These are binaphes, means binapthyl. So there are 2 napthyl groups, binapthyl. These are phosphines. They are used in catalysis. So they are also have a mirror image. They also have a mirror image relationship, right? But still, here also you will not find any chiral carbon. These are due to restricted rotation around the single bond itself due to the bulky groups, right? Actually, these are called attrop isomers. Some of you might have heard the name, right? So you have attrop isomerism, so they will give rise to this kind of chirality due to restricted rotation around a single bond, right? This was due to restricted rotation around a multiple bonds, but here this is restricted rotation around a single bond. Sorry. So two things come to our mind, right? Two main things. One is the presence of chiral carbon, right, is neither necessary, as we have seen here, nor sufficient, as we have seen previously, condition for the molecule to be chiral. This is very important, right? This is very, very important. It is neither necessary nor sufficient condition for the molecule to be chiral. And more important is this one. Just non-superposability of mirror image is the necessary and sufficient condition for the molecule to be chiral. Okay. So these two things you have to keep in mind always when you are looking for chiral molecules, right? Just finding a chiral carbon do not guarantee that the molecule will be chiral. Okay. Now let us see that how to find what is the test of chirality, right? How will you find that the molecule is chiral or not? For that, before looking for our chiral carbon, we have to find if there is any plane of symmetry. If there is a plane of symmetry, then we can say that molecule is achiral. And what is a plane of symmetry? Right? A plane of symmetry is defined as an imaginary plane, right, that bisects the molecule in such a way that the two halves of the molecule are mirror images to each other. Suppose in this case, you see, right? In this case, a carbon is here and two groups. I mean, I have kept a single carbon because it is easy to visualize, but you can apply this this mirror plane to any of the molecule. You can apply it here also, right? In this case, you will not find a plane of symmetry. You cannot find. Okay. Okay. You see, if this is a plane of symmetry, imaginary plane. Okay. So in this case, you see, if there is an imaginary plane like this, right? Now this plane is bisecting this green atom and also this blue atom, right, and also this carbon atom in two halves. Fine, but it is also reflecting this red atom here, right? That means this half, the left half and the right half, are mirror image to each other. So this is our plane of symmetry, right? And as such, we can find a plane of symmetry. So we say this molecule is achiral. Achiral means it is not chiral. So it will not have an enantiomer. This molecule's mirror image will also be superposable on it, right? That's why we say this is achiral. On the other hand, if you see here, right, this mirror, this plane is now bisecting this green, this carbon or this gray colored atom and this blue, right? Up to this is fine, but it is not reflecting here, right? This is not being reflected here. So this plane is not a plane of symmetry, right? And as such, we cannot find a plane of symmetry. You can do this the same thing here also. If you see that you will do a plane here, the same thing will happen. It will not be here. It will find here, say you will draw it here, then also it will not happen. And in this case, you have found at least one, right? You have to find at least one. There are molecules where you will find 2, 3, 4, 5, right? suppose in benzene you will find four such mirror planes, so three such mirror planes, right? Three of one kind and three different kind. So there are six mirror planes like this, right? So there you can have more than one, then also it will not be chiral. But if you find at least one, it will be achiral, right? But you have to find at least one. In this case, you do not have any mirror planes. So we say that this is now chiral, right? So this is the test for chirality. You have to find a mirror plane. You have to see that it does not contains a mirror plane. If you by chance you can find out a mirror plane, plane of symmetry inside the molecule, right, which bisects it in two halves, so that the one half is the mirror image of another, then you can easily say that the molecule is not chiral, it is achiral. Okay, so we saw that you have to, the molecule as a whole has to be chiral for optical activity. Now what is optical activity? We are coming now here. Why they are called actually optical isomers? This RS and all that, right? Now RS just is the nomenclature. We'll find out later how to do them. But first of all, we have to see that what is optical activity. Now this, for optical activity, main thing is the molecule has to be chiral. The molecule as a whole has to be chiral. It does not mean it doesn't matter if it has chiral carbon or not, right? As you have seen, so these molecules are optically active. These are now optically active compounds, right? All these things, these are optically active because the molecule itself is chiral, though they do not have chiral carbons. Okay, so this is another important thing. The molecule to be optically active, the molecule as a whole has to be chiral. Now we see what is meant by optical activity. Just we will not go in details calculations, which is not included in your is out of scope of this class also. Not we'll just have a preliminary look on it. Okay. See here, it is a schematic diagram of a polarimeter, right? What we have here is, suppose this is a normal light, just a light source here, right? The arrow shows the planes of vibration of these light waves, right? They can, the light wave is propagating in this direction. Okay, it is propagating in this direction, and the light waves can vibrate in any direction perpendicular to it, right? And so it is shown here, right? So the arrows can be here also, it doesn't matter. Now we have a polarizer here. What is a polarizer? Suppose a Nicol prism, you have a Nicol prism here, Nicol prism, which is a polarizer. So what does it do? It, when a normal light source is passed through it, it gives you a plane polarized light. So this is plane polarized light. Now we will not go into details what is plane polarized light. Maybe in future I will make another small video on what is called a plane polarized light. For the time being, we see it is just enough to understand that through a polarizer, what comes out, the light that comes out now have vibration along only a single plane. See here, there are different planes it was vibrating. Here you have vibrations along a single plane, right? It's going like this, right? You do not have vibrations on the other thing. You cannot find it. So this is plane polarized light. So we have vibration along a single plane, right? Now if there is nothing, it will pass through. But if you have an optically active sample in this portion of the cell, what it does is, see, the light that emerges out of the polarimeter has a different plane. The plane itself has changed, right? It was something like this here. This plane has rotated, right? So anything that rotates the plane of plane polarized light is said to be optically active. That's why it is called, the name came then optical activity. Okay, and that can be analyzed how much angle has gone there, right? So this is the analyzer. So suppose say there is slits, right? So if you have vertical slits, now this light cannot pass away from here because it will be obstructed because there is no opening here, right? Now that means this analyzer has to be rotated at specific angle so that you see how the light to come out, right? So how much angle is rotated, then the observer will can see the light gives you the rotation. If it is anti-clockwise, you say it is minus. If it is clockwise, you say it is plus. And this clockwise and anti-clockwise is with respect to the viewer. With respect to the viewer, it will be more clear if you see here, right? So it is seen here in this first panel, right? So your plane polarized light is coming through the polarizer, and the analyzer is in line, right? Is in line with the this polarizer, so it can come out. But if it is cross with the polarizer, you see it is crossed with the polarizer, then nothing will come out. This light will not come out, right? Fine. Now you have a sample here, right? And this has rotated. Now from the viewer's point of view, you have to rotate anti-clockwise 40 degree, I mean just an example, right? 40 degree to see the light come out, right? That's why you will say this molecule or this compound, whatever is here, has rotated it to minus 40 degree. So if it is minus 40 degree from viewer's angle, so that means it is anti-clockwise from the point of view of viewer, right? We say it is levorotatory. See, here is an example of this. We are again going into this 2-butanol example. So one of the isomers, enantiomer of the 2-butanol, right, rotates the plane polarized light by minus 13.52 degrees. So we say it is levorotatory. Levorotatory, right? That means on the left hand side. Whereas the other enantiomer will do the rotation in the same, the magnitude of the rotation will be same, only the angle, the sign will change, right? Now it will do in the clockwise rotation, so we'll say it is dextrorotatory. Right? So it is levorotatory, this is dextrorotatory, right? And we usually denote it by plus sign and this by minus sign. Okay, so this is the plus and minus designation of enantiomers, and it has no relation with R and S, right? It has no relation with R and S. It is sometimes people do confuse that the R will be plus or S will be minus, but it has nothing to do with it. R and S are just absolute configurations, and these plus and minus are their properties, experimental determined properties by which direction they they rotate the plane of plane polarized light. If it is clockwise, then we say it is dextrorotatory. If it is anti-clockwise, we say levorotatory or minus. Dextrorotatory or plus, or levorotatory or minus. See, in the next slide, we have more examples. Here you see another molecule of butanol, but this time, see, the R is rotating in the clockwise direction. So it is dextrorotatory now, dextro. And this S is now levo, right? So, and in the other example, so the R is levorotatory, and this is now dextro, right? So there is no obvious correlation between R and S and this plus and minus, right? So you should not confuse it, right? And see another example. So here they are different compounds, so they are not isomers. No, these two are not isomers. but they have same configurations. So around this chiral carbon they have same configurations, so absolute configurations, that is R, right, that is R. But in this case this is dextro, right, because it has plus, whereas this is minus, and this is, that's why it is levorotatory. Okay, so next we will see how to find RS nomenclature, how to designate RS nomenclature. So now we will see the absolute configuration of these optical isomers, right? So we will follow the RS nomenclature, which is the Cahn-Ingold convention, Cahn-Ingold Prelog conventions and rules. So you may call it CIP rules, right? Okay, now what are these? Now first thing first, we have to assign numerical priority to each group bonded to the asymmetric carbon. Suppose you have 4 groups, say A, B, C, D, right? Now we have to assign numerical priority. Suppose A is the highest priority. If it is highest priority, you say it's 1, and the lowest priority is 4th position. So you have to assign 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now how we will assign the priority? That is given by this Cahn-Ingold Prelog or CIP rules. So the first rule is we have to compare the first atom in each group, right, that is directly bonded, and the atoms will be with the highest atomic number will have the highest priority. So just by going by the atomic numbers we will have highest priority. Now we have to see there are 2 examples. Let's do. So in this case, the first one, what we see, which has the highest atomic number in them? So it's fluorine, so it is 1 here. Now the second one is nitrogen, right? Third is carbon, and the fourth is hydrogen. Similarly, in this case you see chlorine has the highest atomic number, so it is 1. Then comes you have oxygen, so it's 2. Then carbon, then hydrogen. Hydrogen having the lowest atomic number, it is always assigned the lowest priority. Okay, so there was no ambiguity. There was 4 different groups, 4 different atoms. So there was no no difficulty, no ambiguity in assigning the priorities. We can do it easily. But say if you have this kind of example where the atoms attached to the chiral carbon are similar, right? Here in this example you have all 3 carbons. One is hydrogen, so you can easily assign it 4 because it will be the lowest priority. But what about this? How can you assign 1, 2 and 3 to them? Because all are carbon. So Cahn-Ingold Prelog rule says in case of ties, right, you have to consider the next atom in the chain and the first rule will follow. So what is this? This is a carbon attached to 2 hydrogens and another carbon. Here this is attached to 2 hydrogens, another carbon, right? And here this is attached to 1 hydrogen and 2 carbons, right? So you see the second one, the second atoms, right? Here you have 2 carbons, so this will be the winner. Okay, so you will attach 1 here, right? Now what about them? These 2, they again are tied because you see there is 1 carbon and 2 hydrogens, 1 carbon and 2 hydrogens. Then you have to look for the next one. See, the chain stops here for this one, but here you have another bromine here, right? So this will be 2 and this will be 3. So like this, following these simple rules, you can assign priorities to any groups. Okay, now you see, if you have double bonds, how to consider? This should be considered like as if they are duplicated or triplicated. Just open up, right? You have to open this and put the substituents like this. Now it will be clear if you take an example. Suppose you have to compare between these two groups. Sorry, yeah, you have to compare between these two groups, right? This group and say right. Okay, so if you have to compare between these two groups, which will have higher priority? Now this one we can consider C, H. We can write it like this, right? And in this case we'll follow this rule, right? So we can write it C, okay, and here we'll imagine it's C here, so two hydrogens are already there, okay, and it will again imagine we are C here. Now you apply the second rule. You see, this will have higher priority. This will have higher priority because this carbon is attached to one carbon, two carbons. Of course, here is also there is two carbon, but then the second carbon is again given, I mean priority due to this carbon, right, which is attached to the second carbon. Okay, so by following these rules we can assign priority to any groups. Okay, now the main part comes. See, we have taken this example. What is this? Our this 2-butanol, right? Again this is the 2-butanol. Now if you assign priority, suppose this is oxygen, so it's 1. Of course this is 4. Now out of these two carbons, this will be 2 and this will be 3. Okay, now Canning-Ingold rule, Prideaux rule says now you have to hold it, the fourth priority group, away from you. So if this is the viewer, the fourth priority group should be farthest away from you, and the viewer should look along this bond, the bond between the chiral carbon, right, and the lowest priority group, right, the bond between the chiral carbon and the lowest priority group. If you view along this axis, what you will see? You will look something like this, right? It will appear something like this to you. The OH, the ethyl and the methyl will look like this. See, if you just rotate it here, it will look like this. Now, as we have drawn it here, the same molecule will look like this. Now, how it will look like? If you now from say, so this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. If you now draw a line from 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3, if this is clockwise, right? So here this line, when you go from 1 to 3 through 2, this is clockwise. If this is clockwise, we say that this has a configuration of R, right? This has a configuration of R, right? Whereas on the other side, if you take this molecule, right, it will look like, so it will be OH here, ethyl will be here, right, and methyl will be here. So it is 1, 2, 3. Now it is anti-clockwise, so it is S-butanol. Okay, so this is S and this is R, right? Now this R and S, actually this is actually stands for rectus, so it is Latin word, Latin of right, right, Latin of right hand side, right, and this is sinister, so this is sinister, so Latin of left. Okay, so this is our absolute configuration. So this has nothing to do with the rotation of your plane polarized light, right? So just assign priority. So first rule is assigning priority, and then after you have assigned priority, put the lowest priority group away from you. When you put the lowest priority group away from you, right, the triangle you can see a triangular view like in Newman projection. And if you going from the highest priority to the third priority, right, so 1 2 3, if you can draw a line, and if it looks clockwise, then it is R, and if it is anti-clockwise, then it's S, right? Okay, now similar to RS for optical isomerism, there is a nomenclature called EZ for geometric isomerism, right? Now we have seen this example before also, this cis and trans chlorine. Now is it easy to write cis and trans like this? But see, if you have this kind of example, say I have a double bond here, right? You have a methyl here, right? And H here, a bromine here, and a chlorine here, right? And others you have, say, the same isomer, right? Sorry, not the same isomer. It's isomer if I have, say, bromine here and chlorine here. They are again geometric isomers. So these two are geometric isomers. Diastereomers, you can say also that they are diastereoisomers. But now, how will you assign cis and trans, right? So you do not have same kind of substituents, right? So for more general purpose, so cis and trans sometimes fails, right? You cannot assign unambiguously what is cis and what is trans. So for that purpose, you have to have a Z, E and Z nomenclature. And what is this? Again, we follow the Cahen-Ingold-Pirog rule on each carbon atom and assign the priorities. So which has more priority here? Of course this, and this is again 2 lowest. And here if you compare, bromine has highest priority over chlorine, and here also we can assign it, right? Here you have 2 and this is 1. Now this rule says if the highest priority groups are on the same side, right, then you call it Z, and if they are on opposite sides, right, if they are on opposite sides, then you call it E. E stands for Entgegen. Again, this is a German for opposite, right? And this is Zusammen. This is German for means same side, together. Okay, so this is the EZ nomenclature. By this you can unambiguously assign E and Z nomenclature to any geometrical isomers and to different double bonds also if there are multiple bonds in your compound, right? Because this is based only on priority basis, right? Nothing to do with the same side or all that things. Okay, now we come to our last segment. We'll just briefly consider this, that what happens when there is more than one chiral center. We already discussed some part of it while discussing the chirality of molecule itself, right? So let's see what we can find out. See, suppose this is the cholesterol molecule, right? This is found, right? So how many chiral center is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 chiral centers are there. Then how many isomers are possible? So in general, right, if the stereoisomerism is due to chiral centers, right, not for allenes or that kind of hindered rotation, if the stereoisomerism is due to chiral centers, then the total number of stereoisomers will not exceed 2 to the power n, where n is the number of chiral centers. So in this case it will be 2 to the power 8. Okay, so I means it will not exceed right? This is important, it will not exceed, right? So for example, if we take this one, right, for 2-bromopentane, 2,3-dibromopentane, right, so it has two chiral centers, right? So as per our calculations, the maximum number will be 2 to the power 2 equals to 4. Let's see if 4 are there, 4 isomers are there. If I draw the first isomer like this, right, the mirror image will be this one, and clearly you can see these are not superposable, right? So they are a pair of enantiomers. Okay. Similarly, if I draw the third one, it is again not superposable, so another pair of enantiomers. Okay. Now, how to name them, right? So clearly here you see, if I consider this first part, the hydrogen is dotted, so that means it is away from you already, right? Now which is the highest priority? So this is the lowest, bromine is the highest, and this group, right, and here is a ethyl group and there is another group, carbon, and then bromine attached. So this group as a whole is now second priority, and here this is the third priority. So the fourth one is always away from you. Now if you go from bromine to this second group and to third, it is clockwise. So that means this center is R. Okay. Now if you look here, now if you consider this center, right, again the hydrogen is away from you, so no problem. So here this is 1 and this group is 2 now, and this is 3. So from here if you see 2 then 3, it is anti-clockwise, so it is S. So you rename it as 2R, sorry, it is 1 2, right? So it is 2S 3R, this dibromopentane. Fine. Okay. Now this is the mirror image, right? Now for this mirror image, you see, you can just assign R and S here, just the opposite, right? But if you want to try, you can try one. So here it is bromine, so this is the second priority group, and this is the third priority. So from 1 to here, so this is what, clockwise. So this is now R and this will be S in similar fashion, right? So yes, S. So there, here the name will be 2R and 3S and 2-bromopentane. Fine. Now in this case, this part is same as here, right? Same as here. So you do not have to work it again. So this will be R. Fine. But now you see the hydrogen is towards you, right? So you have to view, actually go back of the plane, on the other side of the plane, and view it from here in this side. So if you view it from here, try to imagine, right, what you will see. You are going this way. So that is from our point of view, from the over the screen, you can see it is going anti-clockwise. But actually what, if you are viewing from below the point, it is actually clockwise to you, isn't it? It is clockwise to the viewer who is here. So it is also R, right? And similarly, these both will be S. So you will rename it as 2R, 3R, and this will be 2S, 3S. Okay. Okay. So So these are the 4 different isomers of 2,3-dibromopentane. So IUPAC name of all these 4 structures will be same, only the prefix will be changing, right? And what we have seen, these are pair of enantiomers, there is another pair of enantiomer. Fine. So this now in this case this matches with 2 to the power 2, we have 4. Now what is the relation between this 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 4, right? They are enantiomers. 1 and 2 are enantiomers, so is 3 and 4 are enantiomers. But what is them? These relations are called diastereoisomers. Diastereoisomers, right? They are diastereomeric relationship between them because these are neither mirror images, right? They are not mirror images to each other. So they are diastereoisomers. Okay, now let us take another example of say 2,3-dibromobutane. Now it's not pentane, it's 2,3-dibromobutane, right? Now see, I have drawn here 4 isomers, right? Now again we have 2 chiral and carbons here, right? 1 and 2, the 2 and 3 at 2 position and 3 position. So the maximum number of isomers should be 4. So this will be the maximum number, right? So these are the 4 maximum numbers that is possible. Now let's see one by one. See in A, as we did in the previous example also, here also we can assign absolute configuration, right? Suppose this is the highest priority group, that this group as a whole is the second priority and these the 3, right? So and the hydrogen is away from you, so you can clearly say this is clockwise, so this will be R, okay? And similarly here you see now the hydrogen is towards you, so you have to view from this angle, right? So below the plane. So from below the plane you see the viewer is seeing it like this, right? It's clockwise for him or her, right? Now you are looking from top of the group, from the hydrogen facing towards you, so it is appearing that it is anti-clockwise. But if you are a person who is viewing from below the plane, for him or her it is clockwise, so this is also R, so you rename it as 2R, 3R, and of course it is dibromobutane. And now for B you don't have to analyze it again, you can clearly say that this is also S and this is also S because they are mirror image of each other, right? And of course it is not superposable. Now if you rotate this, right, you will superimpose it, you will superimpose this part, right? This hydrogen will superimpose, if you rotate this 180 degree from here, you can superimpose this hydrogen and this Br, this part will superimpose but this one will not. So they are a pair of enantiomers. Okay, so they are distinctly separate isomers. And now the naming will be different. It is 2 or 3R, it will be 2S, 3S. Okay. Now let us examine C. See, just by comparing with A, you see this part is same as A, right? So it will be R here, and this part here is same with this one, right? Same with this one, so it will be S here. And as this is the mirror image, so it will be S here. Sorry, it is same thing, right? So it will be S and it will be R. Sorry, you do not have to even designate it because you see this mirror image is superposable, right? Clearly you can superimpose D on C, right? So it is superposable, right? So these are not same, these are identical, right? They are same, they are not different isomers, they are identical. So they are not different isomers. So we can say that a 2,3-dibromobutane do not have 4 isomers, right? It has only 3 isomers. Only 3 isomers. Only 3 isomers are there for 2,3-dibromobutane, because one of the isomers that we drew is same as the other one of them, the other 3, right? So there is only one. And why it is so? Because see, in this case you have a plane of symmetry, right? We have a plane of symmetry here which divides the molecule in such a way that one half is the mirror image of the other, right? Same thing we have seen for our mesotartaric acid, right, that we considered before, if you remember, right? Here also we have a plane here in between this, which this half is reflected in the other half. Such compounds are called meso, right? These are meso, right? They are neither R nor S, and they are optically inactive. Why? Because the clockwise rotation of one part, right, is cancelled by the anti-clockwise rotation of the other part, right? The clockwise rotation of this part is neutralized by the anti-clockwise rotation of this part. That's why they are optically inactive. Meso compounds, though have chiral centers, right, are optically inactive, right? So because the molecule as a whole is not chiral, the molecule is not chiral, right? This is achiral, it's not chiral. So we have 3 isomers, and what is the relation between them? The relation between A and B are enantiomers because they are non-superposable mirror image relationship. But what is the relation between A and C, right? This one, or B and C? They are again diastereomeric, right? So these and these are diastereomers. So with this example we conclude our discussion about this stereoisomerism, right? So we have learned the different types of stereoisomers: optical, geometric, and optical we have enantiomers and diastereoisomers. We also learned about how to designate R and S, the absolute configuration, and we have also discussed the optical activity, right? So in the next lecture we'll complete the stereochemistry chapter by discussing the stereochemistry of the isomerism of coordination complexes.